some more advanced techniques and tricks to use with crew management. This is kind of a continuation of my previous video entitled Crew Management. Let's get right into it because I'm excited to show you some new things that I discovered. I was playing around with the crew management system. Words help me. So, what I usually do when I play, or the thing that I would usually do, is I would set up my crew schedules something like this. Now, I covered all of this in the previous video. To keep this video short, I won't go into depth about everything I covered previously, just jumping straight into assuming that you already know how to use this menu in this system. But this is how I would normally do it. Pardon me, bear with me one moment. And in this video, I am using 7 officers, which you can unlock at base by talking to the leading officer. And spending your reputation points in exchange for favors, like unlocking extra sailors. No, officers. I didn't organize the portraits yet. Silly me. There we go. I'll explain why I'm leaving them set to anything. I believe I covered that in the last video, but it's still worth touching on again. And why I'm leaving Mr. Gruber here set to anything. But that's not the first thing that I want to dip into right away. I want to talk about these shifts right here. This is how I normally do it. This is for your crew, by the way. As it turns out, the crew doesn't care if you give them breaks. I could set it to this if I wanted to, and nobody would care. I now truly understand the purpose of these crew shifts. Crew and officers. It's worth noting that. Crew, officers. This is only for your sailors. We're going to unassign these. Good. Okay. We're going to jump into talking about the sailors first. So, morning shift and evening shift, right? Makes sense? Well, technically you only need the one shift. Being fancy again. Okay. And power switch tasks, valves. No, not depth steers. This, and this. Actually, no, we don't even need engines. You'll see why in a bit. So these are the only things we need. Obviously, that stays at 1. This will bump up to 2. This will bump up to 4. And this will set to 3. Right? But now this is where it gets interesting. Same priority as I explained in the previous video, because they cancel each other out. If you're submerged, you're not using observation. If you're surfaced, you're not using depth steers. So the day shift, we'll give them a 12-hour shift. Watch crew. We can actually set the watch crew all day. Yeah. We don't need to set it to 8. 1, 2, 3, and then let's say 3 more. So 6 for power switch tasks. Okay. And we'll put 2 guys on the watch crew. No. Okay, see, we're actually going to name these guys. Let's go over here. Let's pick Alwyn Keller and Alwyn Peters. We're going to give him a bit of a sunburned complexion because he's been out in the sun a lot, because he is part of the watch crew. I like the gray jackets. Surprisingly, not as gray as they were historically. They were like really bleached gray, almost battleship gray. Maybe there was a reason behind that. Maybe they wanted them to be the same color as the U-boat so they didn't stand out. Give him his little NCO cap. Give him some binoculars. Then we go to find Peter. Same treatment. Oh, no, I forgot a thing to do. I'm going to append a little W to their name for the watch crew so I can keep track of them. This will also organize them together on the roster screen, alphabetically. Even though they already are together alphabetically, but now you know, right? Right. Okay, so the watch crew, Alwyn Keller and Alwyn Peters. They're now part of the watch crew, and they will be on watch all the time, anytime. And they're heading to their task now. Next up, let's pick Albert Vogel and Klaus Vogel, brothers. They're now going to be brothers in engineering. Okay. Complexion is going to be dirty. Going to be a dirty boy. Extra dirty. Sure, why not? Do it however you want on your boat. Going to make him extra dirty. It looks like the living dead, though. How about... I like that one. Okay. Klaus Vogel, you're next. New shift. And this is literally all they ever do. Okay, go back to squads. Engine crew, add sailors. Albert. And Klaus. Here they are. Where's your brother? There he is. Okay, so I'm sure you're already familiar with this, especially if you watched the last video. Normally, if you just had the day shift and night shift, and you had, ignoring these two down here, if you just had these filled out as you normally would, then some sailors, come on now, some sailors that you assigned here would follow the task given to them here, and when there was not an officer present, some sailors, any sailors, would show up to man the engines in the officer's absence. But because we set it up this way, it will always ever be these two sailors that show up in the officer's absence. So let me send him to the engines now. And then these guys go take a break. Oh, looks like he's grabbing some grub. Well, that's too bad because lunch is canceled. Get back to work. I'm sending Ganye back to bed, and these two guys show up back to work. Gange. Jürgen Gange. But there is more we can do here. Now, the sailors don't care. They don't care about fatigue or energy. There is the debuff, known as too much work from officers, but that has to do with how many guys you have assigned to the officers out of the total 18 sailors you have on board. The less sailors you have assigned to officers, you won't get that debuff. It has nothing to do with how long you work your sailors, your crewmen. So that's why we can have Keller and Peters up here on the watch for 24 hours a day. They don't care. And neither will these two guys. But I'm going to take it a step further. And you'll really appreciate this. We're also going to assign Keller and Peters to both of our watch officers. There's Keller. Here's Peters. Keller and Peters. Now, this is the one problem with having 7 officers, is that it really expands the tab menu. So now, when I send Klaus to the watch, he keeps the 2 sailors that we assigned to the watch crew. So it's keeping the whole aesthetic going. Now, someone in the forums brought up an interesting point, and I kind of skipped over it by accident. Kind of went ahead of myself there. Let's take these 2 guys off of Klaus, and let's just give him 2 random sailors. Any second now. It's not doing it. It actually gave him Peters and Owen. Well, it's not doing what I expected it to do. what I've seen it do, when I had this set up, where Peters and Keller were on the standard crewman watch, and then I brought on one of the officers with two sailors assigned to him, it actually had 4 sailors total assigned on watch. And it reflected it up here. Let me see if I can get it to do it again. But regardless, this is how you can do it. You can save on sailors by just assigning them permanently to both of your watch officers. Keller and Peters. So when your officer steps down, it's Peters and Keller that step up to bat. The only conflict I could see this causing is if he goes onto the deck gun. I wonder what happens if he goes onto the deck gun. Okay, it looks like he takes them off of watch, and now there's nobody on watch, and we are effectively blind. That's the only downside to that. However, we could overcome that by just giving the watch crew 2 more men. Let's do it with Weber and Schneider. Okay. Interesting, it didn't organize them. I think I missed a space in between the W and the M. Or did I? Where's the other watch officer? Watch sailor. Isn't it this guy? Oh, there he is. It's Klaus Weber. Unless I'm blind, it looks like Klaus is actually missing from the roster. It might be bugging out on me, but we'll roll with it. We'll roll with it. So, doing it this way, the watch crew still gets their 2 men, and you get to keep 2 men that are dressed for the job, for the deck gun, and all deck operations. And we're going to do the same thing for the engine crew. We're going to assign those 2 engineer sailors to both of our engineers. Albert, Klaus, Albert, and Klaus. Okay. That way, whenever the engineer goes on duty, he'll keep the 2 Vogel brothers.
Kapitän. Herr Kaloy. Herr Kaloy. Kapitän. Herr Kaloy.
I didn't yet set up officers' tasks. And I get to show you how I do things on a 7-man officer crew. Okay. Our third leading officer is actually going to be our navigator. Actually, we're going to make reloading the ammunition of a higher priority than sleep. And because he's set to anything, as I explained in the previous video, when they're set to anything, you can set priorities higher than sleep, and they will perform them. Such as our 2 radiomen, who are set to anything instead of off-duty. This way, if an emergency comes up, such as first aid, they'll get out of bed to do it. If they're on duty, they'll do it anyway. But this way, set to anything, they will jump out of bed to go do it. Okay, looking good. Hope I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, so Werner is going to be our gopher, while our skipper and his second officer are going to be watch crew, alternating shifts. Werner isn't scheduled for anything, so he'll just sleep and work all day, since his tasks are not really time critical. He'll just update the map when it needs updating. He'll load ammunition when it needs loading. I can actually have him make navigation more important than sleep. Yeah. Sleep just got bumped down on the priority list for poor Gruber. Gruber the Goober. Okay. So yeah, I think this is what the devs truly designed this system for. So you can make as many shifts as you want for specific things. In this case, I have a shift specifically for the watch crew, a shift specifically for the engine crew, and 2 shifts for separate cooking and cleaning. So that's not done at the same time. This helps you conserve sailors, and conserving sailors is important, because the more sailors that you conserve on this page, the more sailors that you free up to work for your officers. And now we get to keep the aesthetic. Not just keeping the aesthetic, mind you, but as you play and you unlock Seawolves, you can manually schedule or assign those Seawolves to your officers. In case you want them in the engine room or helping to reload a torpedo, you know they won't crack under pressure. Or if you want to put them on the deck gun or on watch, it's up to you. All right. I know it got a little buggy there, but as you can see, it works for the most part. Disclaimer. And it lets you keep the all-important aesthetic. The watch crew looks like a watch crew, and the engine crew looks like an engine crew, and I think that's just fantastic.